Hi everyone, welcome to the Carson Kids Sensory Series. Today we will be learning about sensory processing. We will be talking about what is sensory processing, what does it mean to be hyper-responsive, what does it mean to be hypo-responsive, and lastly, what does it mean to be under-responsive? Sensory processing is a part of everything we do, from climbing out of bed in the morning, to the smell of our coffee brewing, to hearing the school bell sound, to even feeling the warm summer breeze on our skin. However, sometimes our bodies receive sensory messages differently. Some people need more input than others. Rather than climbing out of bed without extra movements, there might be a need for more input, and we jump out of bed and bump into the wall on purpose to receive that input. Some people might find certain sensations to be overwhelming. Rather than enjoying the smell of the coffee brewing in the morning, it might be too strong and make them gag. Some people might be unable to filter out the difference between senses. For example, rather than hearing the school bell, there might be too many other sounds happening at once, and we can't differentiate the bell sound from the sound of the lockers opening and closing. Some people feel that even the tiniest bit of sensory information is too much. For example, rather than tolerating the warm summer breeze, it might feel too intense, causing someone to cry out in pain. Looking at how our body understands the different sensory inputs can help us understand our kids that are dealing with sensory problems. A child might be described as hyper-responsive, also known as over-responsive or hypersensitive. This child tends to be known as a sensory avoider. This child responds excessively to sensory input. The slightest movement, touch, or sound could send this child into a negative reaction. The child who gagged at the smell of coffee and could not tolerate the warm breeze are two examples of a child who is hyper-responsive to sensation. A child might be described as hypo-responsive, also known as hyposensitivity. This child tends to be known as a sensory seeker. This child does not receive enough sensory input and is constantly looking for ways to get that just right level of input. These sensory seeking behaviors can impact their day because they are not able to focus on a task until they are at that just right level. The child who struggled to get out of bed without extra movements of jumping on the bed and bumping into the wall is an example of a child who is hypo-responsive. A child might be described as under-responsive. This child exhibits a diminished response to sensory input. More sensory input is needed than average in order to get a response. This child can appear to be lazy or tired. The child could not hear the school bell due to the other sounds is an example of a child who is under-responsive. Every day, we can sense the world around us differently depending on how we slept, what we ate, or what we did the day before. Our kids that struggle to understand the input the world around them is giving can be challenging. It's okay. Try your best to be understanding and patient. Our next videos will help explain the different senses and what to do to help a child better understand the world around them. To quickly review, sensory processing is a part of everything we do. Some of us might be hyperresponsive, hyporesponsive, or underresponsive to sensory input. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or concerns, we would love to hear from you. As always, these videos are not a substitute for medical care. Please always seek the advice of your medical team before implementing any of the strategies discussed here. Until next time.